Hello everyone, welcome back to UPSC IAS Desk and our Indian Polity series based on Niyam Lakshmikant. In previous video, we discussed the roadmap of this complete polity course and how we will systematically cover every topic relevant for your UPSC prelims, mains and interview if possible. Today we begin our journey with very first chapter, that is historical background of the Indian Constitution. Now before we understand the Constitution of India, let me ask you a simple question. Do you think that our constitution suddenly came into existence, uh, you know, on 26 January 1950? The answer is obviously clearly no, because the constitution that governs more than a billion people today was not created overnight. It is the result of long constitutional journey that evolved over nearly 3.5 centuries. That is 350 years. Okay. Um, and to understand why our constitution looks the way it does today, we must first understand how India was governed before independence. Many students make the mistakes of directly jump to the Constituent Assembly and the making of the constitution. But if you do that, and if you do that because of the length of the video, obviously there is no doubt the video is going to be lengthy. But you have to be patient and just listen it in a story form, because if you just try to jump to directly the main points, you miss the bigger picture. You miss the questions such as why do we have a strong central government, why do we have governor in states, why do we have public service commission, why do we have bicameral legislature in some state, why we have division of power into three different lists, union list and state and concurrent list. So the roots of many of these features can actually be traced back to British rule. So how it all began in 1600? What happened? The British came to India as traders through the East India Company. And they had special permission from Queen Elizabeth I to do business here. And for a long time they only traded. But in 1765 something significant happened. The Battle of Buxar was fought on 1764 between the British East India Company commanded by Major Hector Munro and a combined allied army of Indian rulers, the army of Nawab Bengal and Nawab of Awadh and Shah Alam II, the Mughal emperor. As a result, the British emerged victorious, and the decisive military win solidified British control over Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, the eastern part of India, and laying the foundation for the British Empire in India. So that victory gave company enormous influence in India. As a result, in 1765, the company got Diwani rights. That means the legal, rights to collect taxes and handle civil justice in Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. That's when they stopped being just traders and become territorial power. Then, after 100 years, same thing has been went down, and during 1857, major event has taken place. That is in form of first War of Independence. After that, the British Crown directly took over the rule of India, and this continued till 15th of August 1947, when India finally become independent. Now, when we got independence, we needed our own constitution to run the country. So, Constituent Assembly was formed in 1946, and our constitution came into effect on 26 January 1950. So, but here's the thing: many feature of our constitution and political system actually came from the British rule. Over the years, the British passed many acts that shape how India was governed, and these acts are foundation of our constitutional history. So, to understand this, we can, easily divide the entire journey into two major phases. One is the company rule, that is from 1773 to 1858, when India was governed by East India Company, and the second part was from Crown Rule 1858 to 1947, when India came under direct control of the British Crown after the revolt of 1857. So in this chapter, we will travel step by step from regulating act to all the way to Indian Independence Act of 1947, and you will understand not only the chronology of events but also how each act has different influence on the next, and how many features of our present constitution emerge from the historical process. So let's begin our constitutional journey from the trading company in 1600 to an independent democratic republic in 1950. Let's start with the first important milestone in Indian constitutional history, the Regulating Act of 1773. First of all, why they felt the need of passing these laws. See, by the early 1770s, East India Company was no longer just trading company. They got Diwani rights. And then, however, the company was becoming more corrupt and financially weak and poor managed. So the British Parliament become worried and they ask a simple question: how can a private company rule such a huge territory without any supervision? So to solve that, confusion or the problem, the British government passed Regulating Act of 1773, and this was the first major law through which the British Parliament tried to control the East India Company, and that is why it is considered the starting point of constitutional development in India. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. So, what changes did this act bring? So, first point was the Governor of Bengal was now called the Governor General of Bengal, and the first one was Lord Vaughan Hastings. Before 1773, there was three important presidencies: Bengal, Bombay, and Madras, and each had its own governor and functioned quite independently. But the British wanted one central authority, so the Governor of Bengal was elevated to position of Governor General Bengal, and Lord Vaughan Hastings became the first one, and this made the Bengal most important presidency in India. Okay, and the second was he got a team of four members to help him called the Executive Council. So the governor was not allowed to rule alone. The council of four was created to assist him in decision making. So decisions were not taken by majority vote. So decisions were taken by majority vote, and the idea was to prevent dictatorship and ensure collective decision. Okay, and the third point was earlier Bengal, Bombay, and Madras were independent of each other. Okay, so Bengal become now superior. Earlier they both acted independently. Now they were placed under the control of Bengal, and this was the first step towards centralized administration in India. Okay, I hope this point is clear. And now, for the first time, one presidency becomes superior to others. Okay, and major thing has happened, that is Supreme Court established in Calcutta in 1764, the first Supreme Court of India that was established, and it consists of one Chief Justice and three other judges. So its purpose was to ensure justice and enforce British laws. Okay, this was the beginning of formal judicial system under British rule. And next point. Okay, the company servants were banned from doing private trade or taking bribes from the locals. So many company servants were becoming rich through corruption, and they are accepting gifts and taking bribes and conducting private trade. So this act prohibited everything: private trade by company servants and accepting gifts and bribes from the Indians. The goal was to reduce corruption. Okay, and next point, the company's director had to send. So now, court of director committee has been established, and their duty was to regularly send reports to the British government, revenue matters, civil administration, military affairs, and this meant to British Parliament had started supervision, okay, supervising the company's activity. So what went wrong? They had problem with the act. So although the act was important, it had many flaws. First one, the Governor General has no veto power. So what happened as a result? The Governor General was only one member of the council, and if the other member disagree with him, he could be out-voted, and as a result, conflict and administrative deadlock become common between the Governor General and his council. Even Vaughan Hastings frequently clashed with his council members. Second, because Supreme Court was established, so confusion between court and government Okay, so the power of the Supreme Court were not clearly defined. Nobody knew exactly where the court's authority ended and where the government's authority began. As a result, judges started interfering in administration, and administrator challenges the court, and this created constant disputes between the courts and between judges and the administrator. And the third important flaws that it has was no clear separation of function. The East India Company was doing two jobs simultaneously. One was business and trade, and second was governance and administration. Governor and administration. So they failed to clearly separate this function, and this caused confusion and inefficiency. So then, to fix all the flaws, they have passed another act, that is the Amendment Act of 1781. Okay, the biggest issue was the conflict between the Supreme Court and the company's administration. So, the court often interfering in the government work. The government felt that the administration had become difficult. So, in 1785, the British Parliament passed another law known as Amendment Act of 1781, or Act of Settlement, you can call it as. Okay, to fix the flaws. The main purpose was to remove the confusion created by the Regulating Act of 1773. What did the act fix? So the Governor General and Council protected. Okay, the Governor General and his council were exempted from the Supreme Court's jurisdiction for actions performed in their official capacity, and same for company servants. So they were the company servants and company officials were completely exempted from Supreme Court's jurisdiction. Revenue matter kept outside the Supreme Court. Okay, and the tax collection, revenue administration were completely exempted from Supreme Court jurisdiction authority, and personal laws recognized. Here, the Supreme Court was instructed to respect the local customs and religion. Therefore, Hindus would be governed by Hindus, and Muslim would be governed by Muslims. And this was an important recognition of India's social and religious diversity. And after that, the fourth important fix that has been made through this act was appeal from provincial court. So appeal from provincial court also would go to the Governor General in Council instead of uh, you know Supreme Court. That's streamlining the judicial process. So here, if you see, the Supreme Court power has been trying to limit here. So the power to regulate provincial court, the Governor General Council could now make regulation for provincial courts also and for council also. So the more power has been vested to the Governor General of Bengal instead of giving it to Supreme Court's regulation or jurisdiction authority. So this strengthened the administrative control of the Governor General, and so whatever the defect or the flaws has been created, or the confusion has been created through regulating Act 1773, the same thing has been corrected, its defect, through the Amendment Act of 1781. Okay, now, so now we have Pitt's India Act of 1784, that is Double Government Act. The Regulating Act of 1773 was first attempt to control East India Company, right? So, however, it did not solve all the problems. You have seen that, like, many confusion has been created. Then again, one more law has been passed to fix the problems. And now the British Parliament still felt that the company had too much power and was not properly accountable. So, in 1784, the British Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger, okay, introduced a new law known as Pitt's India Act. This act considered one of the most important milestone in India's constitutional history. So again, why this act was needed? Because the East India Company was doing two completely different jobs: running a business and earning profits. And the second one was governing millions of people in India. The British government felt that these two functions should not be mixed together. So therefore, Pitt's India Act tried to separate them. That's why double government act we can call it as. But let's see the important points here. What changes did this act bring? First one, first one, commercial and political functions were separated. Okay, for the first time, the clear distinction was made, uh, you know, between commercial activities, trade and business, and political activities, administration and governance. This brought greater clarity. Okay, and second, the court directors continued. The court of director was there. They were still continued with their trade, commerce, and financial operation. In simple words, they were handling the company's business affair. Okay, and third point was a board of control was created. One another board or committee was created, that is in the name of board of control, new body established by the British government. The job was to supervise political and political and administrative matters in India. Okay, and this ensured direct involvement of British government in Indian affairs. Okay, and then double government system, as I said, court of director, court of directors were earlier there, and now another council, board of uh, control. Uh, these people were handling trade, commerce, and financial operation, and these people were given political and administrative matters. So double government system started. Court of director managed business affairs, and board of control manages political affairs. Okay, and governance. So because two separate bodies control Indian administration, and arrangement become famous as the system of double government. So name is system of double government. Okay. So here, board of control had more power. They got wide powers: civil administration, military affairs, and revenue matters. So they significantly increased the British government control over India through this act. And the next point was companies' territories called British possession. For the first time, the territories controlled by the East India Company were officially recognized by the British, officially recognized as British possession in India. This showed that India was gradually coming under the direct British influence. So, does this act also have problem? Yes, this act also had problems, and that improved control. It created new issues. There were now two centers of authority: court of director and board of control. Okay. Yes. So as a result, responsibilities often overlapping responsibilities overlapping, and decision making becomes slow, and conflicts arose between two bodies, and many times it was unclear who was actually responsible for particular decision. So, and to fix that, another act has been passed. Okay, so Act of 1786. It is not really important act, but just this act has been passed to for the special power for to give special power for Cornwallis. After Pitt's India Act, the British government wanted stronger leadership in India, so Lord Cornwallis was uh, wait. Lord Cornwallis was selected as the new Governor General of Bengal, but Cornwallis has condition. He said that I'll accept this position only if I'll be given greater authority. So British government agreed and passed this Act 1786, the Act of 1786. So what power were given to him? The power to override the council. The same problem. Under earlier system, decisions were made by majority vote, and there is often created delays and disagreement. And Cornwallis was given the authority to overrule his council whenever necessary. Okay, and this strengthened the office of the Governor General. And second power that has been given is Governor General could also be Commander in Chief. Cornwallis was allowed to hold two positions simultaneously: Governor General of Bengal and Commander in Chief of the British Army. This meant both civil and military authority could be concentrated in one person. Why this act is important? The act made the Governor General much more powerful, and the British believed that the strong central authority was necessary to govern India and Indian people effectively. Then came the Charter Act of 1793. Again, more powers has been extended to Governor General. East India Company Charter had to be renewed periodically by the British Parliament. So, the 1793, another renewal took place through the Charter Act of 1793. Unlike some later Charter Act, the Act did not introduce major reforms. Okay, so what changes did it bring? Cornwallis special power become permanent. Whatever power has been given to him, it has become permanent, and the overriding powers given to Cornwallis were now extended to all the future governor generals and the governors, and more control over Bombay and Madras. The governor general gained greater authority over the presidency of Bombay and Madras, and that further strengthened the centralization. And third point, companies' trade monopoly extended, so their license has been renewed for next another 20 years, and no other British company could freely trade in India. And then fourth point was commander in chief, not automatically a council of members. So commander in chief, the post that has been created for especially for Cornwallis, again that post was there, but the new member will be appointed, and that member will not be the member of governor general council unless that person has been invited specially. Okay, and then the fifth point was expenses charged to Indian revenue. So the salaries and expenses of board of control members and their staff members, the company members, would now be paid from the Indian revenues. Then comes the Charter Act of 1830, 1813. For almost 2 centuries, the East India Company enjoyed monopoly over trade with India. In simple words, no other British merchants could freely trade in India. The reason was after going back to their homes, this governor generals used to live a lavish life, so that instigate people, local people, to come to India and to have investment and to have businesses. So that the demand has been increased. So by the beginning of 19th century, many British businessmen were unhappy, and they argue, why should only one company enjoy all the profits from India? The pressure became so strong that when the company's charter came up for renewal in 1813, the British Parliament decided to make important changes. So what did the act do? Companies' trade monopoly ended. First thing. Okay, the biggest change was that companies' monopoly over Indian trade was it was abolished, not completely, because company did not lose everything, but still retained exclusive rights over tea trade and trade with China. This remained highly profitable businesses. So the company did not lose everything. They still have two special areas where they still had monopoly. So crown sovereignty recognized. This act clearly stated that the British Crown was the supreme authority over the company's territories in India, and this was significant because it reinforced the idea that India ultimately belonged to the British Empire, not merely to a private company. Okay, and what was missing from this act? The act focused mainly on trade, commercial part, and introduced almost no major administrative and constitutional reform, and the political structure remained largely unchanged. Then from the Charter Act of 1833, centralization has completed here. By 1833, British territories in India had expanded enormously. The British now felt that India needed a strong central government instead of separate administration making their own laws, and therefore the Charter Act of 1833 became landmark law. It completed the process of administrative centralization. Okay, administrative centralization. Okay, so what did this act do? The major changes. Okay, Governor General of Bengal became Governor General of India. Until now, the Governor General mainly controlled the Bengal. That transformed the office to Governor General of India, and the first person to hold this title was Lord William Bentinck. Lord, okay, here it is, Lord William Bentinck. Okay, and he was given authority over the entire British Indian Empire. Second, Bombay and Madras, all civil and military power centralized. The Governor General of India became the supreme authority in civil administration and military administration. This created a strong central government. The Bombay and Madras lost their legislative power. Only Governor General could now make laws for the whole British India. Okay, and now Bombay and Madras lost legislative power and regulation become acts. So before this law, legislation is known as regulation. laws that were being passed were called as regulation, and after 1833 laws were officially called as acts. And this may seem minor, but it reflected a more formal legislative system. And the next point was the company stopped being a trading company. Okay, this was historic change actually. The East India Company completely ceased as you know stop being a commercial trading company, or they stopped their commercial activities. No more trade, no more business, and become purely an administrative and governing organization. And next important point here, uh, attempt to open civil services. So the act tried to introduce open civil service examination. Said that Indians should not be barred from holding uh, any office or any position, but this was rejected by the Code of Director. So Indian still could not join the civil services. So what was the problem? The Act centralized almost all the legislative authority at the center, and provincial government became dependent on the Governor General. And this excessive centralization reduced local autonomy. Okay. Then comes the Charter Act of 1853, the last of the Charter Acts. What happened? The Charter Act of 1853 was the final Charter Act passed before the end of the Company rule. Unlike earlier Charter Act, it introduced a significant administrative reform. By this time, many people felt that the governance in India needed modernization. The British Parliament responded with important changes. What changes this act bring? So, separation of executive and legislative functions. For the first time, legislative and executive function of the Governor General Councils were separated, and this was an important step towards a modern legislative system. And then, Legislative Council expanded; 6 additional legislative members were added. This enlarged body came to be known as Indian Central Legislative Council. Okay, Indian Central Legislative Council. And it functions somewhat like a miniature parliament. Members debated laws and followed procedures similar to those of the British Parliament. And then important major milestone was open competition for civil services. So open competition for civil service was finally introduced, and Indians could now appear for it, and a committee, Macaulay Committee, was appointed in 1854 to recommend reforms. And this later became the foundation of the present Indian civil services. Okay, and then another important point, the company's rule extended without a fixed period. Earlier, the Charter Act renewed company rule for a specific number of years, 20 years, 40 years, 10 years. This act did not set any time limit. It means that Parliament could end company rule whenever it, wished, or whenever it wanted. So this was warning sign that the company's future was uncertain. And next point was beginning of local representation. For the first time, provincial government received representation in Central Legislative Council. 4 of 6 additional members were nominated from Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. This introduced the idea of regional participation in lawmaking. What was the problem? Although the representation increased, the British officials still formed the majority, and therefore real power remained firmly in British hand, and Indians had little influence over decision making. So from 1773 to 1781, just a settlement act or amendment act. Then came the Quit India Act, and then 1786 more power given to Cornwallis. Then that power has been remained permanent, and then came 1833 Charter. The Governor General of India created. Lord William Bentinck became the first Governor General of Bengal, and legislative centralization completed. Company become purely administrative body. 1833 executive and legislative functions separated. Indian Legislative Council expanded. Open competition for civil services introduced, but beginning of the local representation. Okay. And in Charter Act, the Indians were allowed in the competition. That has become the present day Indian civil services milestone. Okay, then that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video. If you want me to give explanation in Hindi, please comment down below. And for more information, hit the bell icon and give a thumbs up if you like the video. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in next video. Thank you.